Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Welcome, sir.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming to Absen for your meeting. We're thrilled to have you here. My name is Ken Kalish. I'm the Territory Sales Manager that handles the Southeast. And I have Nick Heron, one of our technical directors here, who will be answering some of our technical questions. Smile Yu is my sales engineer, and Fifan is our mechanical engineer. So if you have any other questions afterwards, please reach out to these gentlemen that could help you. I'm going to sell you this stuff. They're going to help you with all the technical information. So we're going to try to keep it very short. We know it is more of a social event. So I'm just going to go through a couple of slides, let you know who Absen is and what we're all about, show you some particular projects that are relevant to your field of business. And then I'm going to turn it over to Nick, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about Absen LED walls and how they relate to cameras and field operations that you might be concerned about. Okay? So again, welcome. And I just want to go through who Absen is. We're a very young company. We've only been around for about 18 years. Our headquarters is in Shenzhen, China. And we have a very large factory of about 30 acres. Our U.S. headquarters is here at this building. And we also have another building about 2 or 3 blocks away, a warehouse of about 15,000 square feet, where we keep product in there and we do RMAs and repairs of pixels. We're a publicly traded company. Last year we did almost $300 million in sales. We have 1,800 employees, and we're the largest LED display exporter out of China. Also, I would like to mention too, all of our products are built for the U.S. market, so they meet with all regulations for FCC safety and emission standards. So there's no issues on any of those aspects for our product. Here's a quick picture of our facility in Shenzhen. As you see, it's a pretty large facility, 250,000 square feet of space, and we are ISO 9000 compliant. I was at the factory last week, and honestly, I was really blown away at how spectacular, how clean the factory is, and how everything works so smoothly over there. So if you ever get over there, we'll make sure we set you up with a nice tour. Again, we've been in the business here for 10 years as the #1 LED exporter. Well, I'll just pass on that one. Again, we started about 18 years ago, and right now we're producing about 300,000 square meters of LEDs on an annual basis. We have patent inventions of over 30, utility model patents of 72, and design patents of 15. And here's just some applications of some of the TV studios that we have done. This is actually from Europe, a European project. Same one with a little bit different backdrop. Here in the United States, we did a project in Alaska for KTVA. This is using our Acclaim 1.9. The actual panel that you're looking at now is our Acclaim 1.5. Colorado. This is the Acclaim 1.5 that's being used. Jimmy Fallon Show, for those who you might watch late night TV. Samantha Bee. And this is a control room project, which is a pretty amazing facility. It's in, was it Haizhou, China? Or was it in Shenzhen? In Shenzhen. It's a operations facility that oversees and monitors all the traffic throughout this one district. And as the specs show, it's 84 feet wide, 22 feet tall, almost 1,800 square feet, close to 800 panels. It's a pretty, I was at it last week, and it's really breathtaking to see how large it is. It's
we use 120 pieces controller.
Oh, really? 120 controllers?
Is that curved?
Yes, there is a slight curve to it, yeah. Some other applications where we've done, this is for a game show type program. A couple of others, corporate environment, this was a curved wall for Bell Helicopter. The Sacramento Kings, We did all of the 4K LED projects within the building here.
Yeah, that is the biggest
And
reference we've done in USA.
is it really? Yeah.
Yeah, biggest.
Okay. And now I'm going to pass it on. This is all the easy stuff. I'm going to pass it on to Nick, and he's going to give you a little bit more technical information on things that you should and shouldn't do when looking at having a TV studio with an LED wall and a camera. Okay? So thank you.
All right. So I'm just going to give you 4 little highlights of LED, our points, some tips. This is broad, really isn't specific on Absen itself, just terms and things to know about. First thing is pixel pitch. So we all are on the same level. If you don't know what pixel pitch is, that's the distance between the center of one LED to the other. So like for example, the 1.5, the center to one LED to the next one right next to it is 1.5 millimeters. Next is color temperature. This really comes into play when it comes to broadcasting, having that you can go from around 3500 all the way over 65. But from the factory, it is calibrated to 6500. So when you're looking at doing it on a broadcast or in a studio, whatever your color temperature of your wash is, before you paint your cameras or color your cameras white balance, you're going to adjust the LED color temperature to match that color wash. If you can adjust your color wash to make it brighter, or to that bluer or 6500 range. Some lighting engineers like to go around that 4000 or so Kelvin, but like I said before, as long as they match, then the color will represent correctly on camera.
Is there anything special that you need to adjust the color temperature, or is it just like doing on
Anything special? No. The software itself will give you that availability or the ability to actually adjust that. It's just a slider action, and you have brightness control, you have color temperature control, and color gamma or gamma control as well.
we have to measure our set's color temperature first, so we know what the set.
Right. Some, like the last studio I was in, they have a digital or LED stage wash that they can set the Kelvin right on the back. So when I walked in there, they were having weird colors, coming through the camera after they, white balanced the camera. And come to find out, their stage wash was at 3,000 Kelvin, and there was 6,500 was a LED. So everything was just completely. Everything was bluer, really. So.
Is there any advantage to using one color temperature over another with your products? Is there like a native color temperature?
6,500, I would say, is the native color. Yeah.
Change if you deviate from that color, that native color, do you get like less brightness, or does it change any of the light output?
Right. You are adjusting the RGB brightness values, the color values, so you will drop some brightness. Yes. When you drop the Kelvin down, yeah, you will lose some. Yeah. Okay. Next is viewing distances. This is a really handy thing to know, especially when you have like a desk with anchors, or if you're putting talent in front of the LED. There is AVD, or a average viewing distance, and then VAD, which is visual acuity distance. This is basically the Goldilocks zone when it comes to visual distances. When looking at it, it's when your brain actually and your eyes actually mix the squares and rectangles of the LED and makes it one full image. So, and it's pretty easy to understand. 1.2 millimeter pixel pitch is going to give you the average is about 6 feet. Usually we say a meter for every millimeter is just a going term, but most of the time it's half. If you times it by 10, that's your visual acuity, or the best place to stand at or have your talent at.
That's an at least or a preferred?
Preferred is your VAD, or the visual acuity, and then the minimum is your average. So for like a 1.5, you're looking at like 8 feet would be the average, where you want to stand. And then if you look at it without really staring at it hard, it'll look like one image. You get further back, obviously it's just going to get better and better as you go. I mean, from where you guys are standing, the 1.2 probably looks almost pretty crystal clear.
Yeah, same with the camera.
Yeah.
Does the camera imaging see it different than your eye does?
Correct. Yeah. So I'm going to get into it when we get into Amore. But when you have your talent stand at the average, you definitely want to look at offsetting your camera, and then back focus will be a little soft, is how we usually call it. And then that will help from actually focusing in on those LEDs or seeing those individual pixels. But usually somewhere around the 6 feet to 12 feet for 1.2 or 8 feet to 16 feet for 1.5. I've dealt with this issue before. Let it be either a moire or retrace. Usually it comes hand in hand depending on if you're using sync. But here's the definitions of what it is. Obviously, when you're using a camera, moire is just the imaging chips, or the sensors are actually usually square. So when those chips align with the squares of the LED, you're going to get the ring, the banding. So that's something that just happens. And there is no white sheet. There is no holy grail of eliminating moire. And you're probably not going to eliminate. You're going to reduce it as best as you can. And it really comes down to environment specific. I mean, you can't do one on every project or every environment and it be the same every time. It's just not going to happen. So there I have a couple of guidelines that will help you reduce it. And then there's retrace, which is what we consider is banding, 60 hertz hum. You're getting those refresh rate lines. So first thing that you really come off of it is the high refresh rate of LED. Most of everything's 3840 now on refresh rates. And that is not like the refresh rate of the content or the controller. That's refresh rate, the cycle rate of the individual LEDs flickering at 3840. Some are 1920. You just got to be aware of what LED you're looking at, because obviously at 1920 you're going to see it a lot worse than you would at 3840.
Persistence to an output in LED, or is it just on and off and that's it, or can you design a persistence?
I believe it's just on and off. It's just going to be flashing, but at such a high rate. I mean, you will see it if you're not synced, if you're not gen locked, and that would be something that we were. My next point would be gen locking, making sure that the controller is available or has sync capabilities. I was just at a integrator of ours, and they wanted to see what the difference is. And we had a Panasonic camera hooked up. Everything was without sync, and they were getting that 60 hertz hum the whole time. They hooked in sync, gone. So sync is very important to make sure all your components are working on the same time.
Are you saying sync like an analog backwards sync? Or are you saying like PCP?
A PCP.
PTP?
Yeah.
So there's a RJ45 on the back of the controller?
This one is it's coax. It's actually just a BNC connector. So it's analog. Yeah. Yeah. So you can test multiple cameras if you have the ability to. Most of the time for a broadcast or a studio, they'll have one type of camera, but definitely if you have the ability to test different types, that is the best way to find out what camera works better to reduce that moire. Anti-aliasing, some cameras have that function. That has helped quite a bit in some cases for people that's called me and asked about having that issue. If they had an anti-aliasing function, they turned it on, and that reduces it quite a bit. But back focusing, slight defocus or softening that back focus on the camera will actually help it quite a bit. That's usually my go-to if they don't have that anti-aliasing button or function. Or changing the aperture speed as well. Discovering, testing different positions of your camera, testing where the rings actually get worse or the moire gets worse or better, so you can know exactly where not to place your camera if you can reduce it the best by placing it just a foot or two away from that. Usually it's off center. That's what I usually tell people. Never be direct onto an LED. It comes into play. It makes it a lot harder when you start to try to put someone in front of a concave wall, because no matter where you put your camera, it's going to be facing most likely that direct LED or that LED itself. So if it's a flat wall, it's a lot easier. You just off center it, and you usually get rid of a lot of it. Talent can avoid by having a pattern or anything like that. Can help And then Stewart, they have a lot of screens. It has MDI screens that you can put over it. Now this does soften the clarity of the screen by a little bit, but it blends in all the pixels, and it eliminates more. It doesn't reduce it, it eliminates it. Another good point about that is if an LED does fail, a single LED, you would never notice because of it. But you do lose the sharpness just by a little bit, and it dims the screen just a little bit too. And then you can use a polarizer on the camera, see if it diffuses the image slightly, but results in a soft image, the same as the screen itself. And that's it. That's all I had for you. I mean, it's very simple. So you guys.
Light from that, it actually is polarized light from that, or?
What, this right here? No, this isn't. No, no. You'd use a screen that would have that.
So
What would the polarizer do?
put a polarizer on the camera. I'm curious what it would do if the light's in the polarizer.
I mean, this is just something. I mean, these are just little tips that I've been told and talked to. Yeah, just true. Yeah, people have told me that it does help, but I've never looked at one directly and seen the difference.
It's interesting. I never thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is today's technology. So where do you see and not just your product, but in general, what's the next big display, LED display advance that we're going to see, and how soon do you see that happening?
I mean, really, we all see micro LEDs. Really, we're advancing in the IMD, which is a integrated module design. That's each one of these walls is an SMD LED. It's a single LED point, each one soldered individually. And with IMD, you have an encapsulation of 4 SMDs. So say a 1.5 millimeter pitch. With an IMD, it's like repairing a 4 mil. But then because it's encapsulated, it's actually more rugged. It can be, touched quite a bit more, less breakage. So if you have a high traffic area where people are rubbing against it or touching it, it will definitely withstand that a lot more. I mean, we have a sales guy that has a gold ring, and every time he wants to demonstrate, he just taps on it as hard as, really, it looks like as hard as he can, and it doesn't do anything. Because they're encapsulated, it's less likely they're going to chip that LED, which is what a lot of times happens when you roughhouse with a LED that's just a smooth face like this. You're going to chip that LED or break the solder point. With IMD, you have a much bigger pad, much bigger surface area for solder.
What size are your panels and how?
They vary. Are you talking about the panels themselves?
Like if you have a dead pixel or a defective panel.
Well, it varies. I mean, LEDs on this is a 10 micrometers by 10, so it's a 1010. That's how small it is. It's very, very small pad. And there's 4 pads per with the ground.
When you have a failure in a section, though, you pull
Yeah, you pull off the module. Like for this panel here, the whole frame is 610 millimeters by 343 millimeters. So it's actually, what's that? 355 module is 355 by 343. So you'd pull this whole module out, and then there's sub-modules inside that's actually a quadrant per module that you can actually remove and replace. Usually when you buy a wall, you're going to get multiple spare modules. And since it's under warranty, you take the one with the bad pixel, you pull it out, you put a new one in, and you send it to us, and we repair that. Even when it's out of warranty, we just suggest that you guys send it in, just because we have the ability, we have the people that they do that for a living, is soldering 1.5s. I mean, I have a guy that I take around to most of my commissionings or installs that he can actually solder the 1.5 while it's still on the wall, which is insane. I mean, he tells me unplug it, so I unplug it. He does his little thing with an iPhone flashlight for one, and holding it, and then holding the solder, and then touches it, and he's like, plug it in. I plug it in, boom. Works. So they are taught and they are trained thoroughly to fix LEDs. So that's why I always suggest do that instead of trying to do it yourself.
To give you an idea, so at the Amway Center, we replaced our planar wall. Anytime where those televisions would go out, it would take us roughly 2 hours to replace a full TV. Then you color correct it, all that kind of stuff. So total about 3 hours. we walk up on a ladder with 2 tools, plug it in, pop it right out. It's a little square, you pop another one in. I lived 10 minutes away, drove it here, and about 4 days later I had all of them fixed, and now we're spares.
Do you have an example of a square you can show us?
Yeah, actually, what I can do is I'll just pull one out for you. Give you a good. Oh yes, I forget about that. Thank you. Now if I can get one out. Here. Yeah. Get one out here. So let's get one that's. So this is a magnetic. So there's 2 magnets on here. The N series is a screw-on, just a little threaded screw on 2 different sides. It's at a 45-degree angle, and you can pull it. And then we have a pneumatic, which is a suction tool. What I'm going to show you here is just the magnetic. You find pretty much the center, and then what I'm doing is just bringing those magnets closer to the module. And then I just make sure I'm right in the center, right there, and then I pull away from the LEDs, and there it is. That's all it is. And then this is a version 1 removal tool. That's why we have them just only in here. So it takes a little bit of time to unscrew these. And if you're trying to get to like the center, especially with a 1.5, I always go from the outside edge and work my way in. Then there's no chance of damaging the corners, because you will for sure if you try to do it first time. And then the biggest thing with this is just knowing the arrows point straight up for these. All of our product has either an arrow painted or actually printed on there. And then as long as it's pointed straight up. And this can all be done hot swappable, just live in the field.
Usually we suggest power off to do that.
Yeah. Well, exactly. These are made to where you can do hot swap. You can do hot swap.
Talk about the wall processor and getting video into the wall.
So the controller itself is like a VX4S, a 4K unit. There's 660s. There's quite a few Novastar controllers that you can use. They vary in different capabilities. Right, like the VX4S that has SDI in, 3G SDI.
Give them a whole picture how the LED screen works.
Yeah. So once you have a controller that you find is what you want to use, SDI, DVI, DisplayPort, whichever, then you plug in that from your source, either be a laptop or a playback system of some sort. Goes through. This one is actually connected to 5 ports, but it's just Ethernet, RJ45, Cat5e, Cat5, Cat6. You can use either, as long as you're within the distance, which is about 100 meters for Ethernet. You can go further to a kilometer using fiber. The 4K units has a transmitter, fiber transmitters in them, and then all you have to do is just make sure you have the receiver side, which just converts it back into RJ45. That's all it does. And then you plug them into the first panel, and then through software, once you want to keep with the S pattern. This is through. I also teach our ACE training, which is an Absen Certified Engineer training, and we go into deep dive and talk about all the way from putting the wall on the wall, and then actually cabling it up, doing data and power calculations, because you have to do all that to make sure that you're not going to drive your circuit break and cause any kind of power issues. So anyways, you just do an S pattern with your jumpers, data, and power, and then you do that, and then you configure it through the software, and then you have it. And as long as you have the correct resolution running to the wall, because obviously, like this one right here, the Acclaim is great because you can do a 1-to-1 ratio width and height, and it'll always be 16:9. So a 2x2 is 55 inches, a 4x4 is 110, and so on. This is a 5x5. But what's great about this one is a 1.5 5x5 is exactly 1920 by 1080. So I can just plug whatever into that, and any laptop will work.
What does it weigh, and you have to support the wall more than any particular way?
Usually, the weight is around, I want to say 18 pounds. I think it's a little bit less than that with cables. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so did you have to make the wall more robust or
Is
put
it?
something
18
together?
pounds.
Yeah, 18 pounds. Okay. Usually I suggest doing 3/4 inch plywood in the back. That's the best solution if that's what you have to work with. Obviously, you'll never hit studs, right on. So 3/4 inch ply on the other side. Yep. And then we have, coming from Absen, we have about 5 partners that not only our own OE mounts, but we work with Draper, we work with Peerless, Premier, Chief. A lot of different companies that make really good mounting products. And we have quite a few. This is a Peerless mount that this is hung on. The 4x4 that's right behind those gentlemen is Chief. This is RP Visuals, so they make it specifically for the CR. And each company has their advantages, for sure, depending on your project. That's ground supported, actually. Are you talking about the curved? That's concave right here? Yeah, that's a ground support from Absen. Yep.
So that's the manufacturer's recommended is what they have.
Correct, yeah. And then the vertical curve concave is actually Draper, using the Acclaim panel, exactly the same.
Remind them difference between mobile product and a fixed installation product. That's the difference.
Yeah. So we offer different rental and staging is usually a 500 by 500. You'll see that with the curve, that one. You have it in the 2.9, 3.9 Polaris. We have an Altair series, which is right over there. That's a 3 mil product, but they also come in a 5 that's being hung. We do offer quite a few different ones. We have a blow-through, which is basically it lets wind blow through it, so it's more for concert style, less wind resistance or surface area for it to actually swing or sway. But most of what you see in here is all going to be fixed install, which is all indoor, nothing outdoor. Anything else?
Dovetail now. What do you foresee the future? Well, everybody's about that. What do you see how small do you think it's going to physically be able to go with
Well, the smallest I've seen so far from every company has been 0.7. So, and at one moment, there's only so many LEDs you can fit in an area. There's only, it's so close that you can get to each LED. So 0.7 is pretty dang close, in my opinion. And when you get to that scale, I don't know if there would be. Micro LED will definitely get a little bit closer, but I think we're getting to our point.
Has anybody experimented with maybe like an overlay, like a bubble lens, kind of micro bubble lens, kind of overlay on top of this, where you don't have a square pixel anymore, you have a little bubble surface that's. Sony came out with this, for some of their CCD sensors to grab more light. Well, maybe in reverse. So the lens would maybe cover a uniform area for each LED, and you would get maybe cut end-to-end cover on that little pixel part.
It's more like the LED lens. It's not a direct view LED. Our product is a direct view LED. So it's the OLED is more like we take use of the LED lighting to do the other stuffs. It's different technology, quite different. Yeah, it's quite different. Our LED is a direct view LED.
Right.
So the OLED, you need some like a glass or lens front of it, and
Yes.
then use the reflection to do the vision. It's different technology. This kind of technology, OLED, is more used for the consumer market, like the LCD TV or like the camera or something like that. Not for the LED display screens. We call this product is the direct LEDs. It's different, totally different.
They do make screens that can blur those individual pixels, like what I was talking about before, but nothing to.
In a camera situation in the studio, Moray is the killer.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, it definitely is.
How far away from the screen, and what's your focal
Mhm.
length on your? That's going to cause it no matter what. So there's another way around that.
The best solution I've found are those like the Screen Innovations MDI screens that actually eliminate it completely. But again, it will blur the image a little bit or soften it. That's right now the best way to completely eliminate moire.
We did
You can reduce it, but that's it.
I say we, before I joined the Magic, I used to do kind of the same installs with all the different kinds of products. And those fidelity screens we installed at ESPN's studio, so they're in front of all the screens. So they're not going to drive, you know, it's not going to be the main video screen, but when it's sitting behind the talent, it's already going to be kind of out of sight for the viewer anyway. So you throw that on there, and it erases all of the moire, as Nick was saying. So I've used them, so I can vouch for it as well, if it helps you guys kind of hear that from someone else. But it does soften the image, but if you're looking at it as a, you know, Fox 35 has it, most of you guys have it, it's like the beauty camera of Orlando in the background behind the talent. It's slightly soft, it's not the biggest deal. You're not going to use it if you're a weather person, but, you know, as a backdrop.
Well, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, they're going to be pointing to something, and they're going to, you know,
Yeah.
they're going to be zooming in on something. Here's the tornado right there, right there. And that's what it's going to throw off.
Yeah, and I can't. I'm trying to think of the company's name right now, but there is a company that makes a screen that actually gets. It's almost like heat shrink, but it gets actually put on the LEDs themselves. It gets stuck on the LEDs, so you don't get the softness. It keeps that clarity, but it eliminates the moire effect as well. But the disadvantage of that is if you have to repair anything, that whole thing has to be ripped off and then reapplied, which obviously incurs more money, more expense.
I forget the name company that's over in like one of the northern countries. They use a glass. It's a glass product.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
That, I forget what it's called. We did some research. We were shooting some TV shows down in South Florida, and they were complaining about the moire.
Mm-hmm.
There was a company that you had to give them like the specs of the LED, and they would custom make this piece of glass that would go in front.
Like a matte kind of glass.
I don't know exactly. It was like proprietary technology they would come up with, and somehow it's able to blur that grid pattern that's being created by the LED pattern, and it hides it.
Is there a way to make that a touchscreen?
There is, yeah. There's companies that make a touchscreen with IR and whatnot.
Have you deployed any HDR with the LED walls yet?
So we're waiting for HDR. We are waiting for controllers right now that are capable of HDR. As of right now, no.
You guys have the built-in dynamic range already, you're just not utilizing it?
Correct, yeah.
You have 1,000 nits on some of these things.
Yeah, the 2.5 is 1,000 nits. And I mean, they vary. The rental and staging can go way over that. I'm standing at like around 650. This one, the 1.5 is 600. Yeah, 600. So they can vary around nits. And I mean, if you guys are, how I relate it, because I was originally a lighting engineer. One nit is 3.3 lumens. That's basically an easy conversion for that.
Yeah, our TV, when we watch the TV, it's around 400 nits. That's the max for the TV. And usually when you watch TV, you don't use the full brightness. Like this one, this is 600 nits is the max. Now we only drive like 35, right?
33% of what it is,
so
yeah.
It's like 180. Yeah, 180 nits.
And with different calibrations or like gamma adjustments, color temperature adjustments, even that will change the brightness or the nit's brightness.
So is this at 30% right now?
This one, I am not for sure what this one is. Usually we keep it around the same. See, this one's at 60. Yep.
60%?
Yep.
Yeah, 360.
You found when you did television studio installs that you had to drop the brightness output
It de-
so that they didn't have to use 3 million watts of light so that it balanced the amount of light versus in your iris settings?
I've done it before. Various projects.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about the environment, about the where it's at, what kind of light. I mean, the CBS Sports that was in Fort Lauderdale, it's in a business building, and there are office spaces that have windows all the way around that shines right into it. So they fight that every day when they do a show. And what was funny is I was talking to the project manager, and he's like, there's this one guy that has an office, and he has a plaque right next to the window. And every time around, I forget what time it was, it would reflect and go right into the anchor's face.
experienced any slowdown or inability to get product from China due to the recent tariff problems?
No, we have no issues getting the product in here, and we've made some adjustments our company to help offset some of the tariffs because we're not interested in losing business. So, unfortunately, that right now the tariffs are at 25%, and we've made a commitment right now. We're adjusting it to pick up 15% of that.
Very good. Thank you. Can you give us an idea of price, just a range, nothing specific, a monitor like this on the wall?
MSRP on these panels are what?
This one panel is like a 24-inch by 13.5-inch one panel. So the MSRP for that one is like 3,150.
This is a 5x5?
This one
Yes.
is one panel. I'm talking one panel, 24-inch wide and 13.5 inch tall. This is
So-
5x5.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a full HD resolution. Different product, price difference. Take this one, same product, same size. This 2.5, one panel is only $1,350 MSRP. So 1/3 of this price.
How about the 84-foot one that you installed?
Do the math, Ken.
Priceless.
Well, I'm here for a little while. So you guys, if you think of anything, yeah.
How does that vary? And what do you guys find the most effective way to do that?
Well, it depends on the wall, obviously. I mean, no wall is true. No wall is true. If you're using our OEM mounting system, and depending on the size of the wall or the display, it can take some time to shim, especially if you're dealing with a big variant.
Typical 16 feet by 9 feet of wall.
I mean,
How much time?
if you're doing like an 8x8, 1.5, it's going to take you probably about 4 to 6 hours to get at least the mounts completely true and your seed row and your reference row. The seed row is your first row at the bottom. Your reference is right in the smack in the center, or as center as possible.
Yeah, 8x8 is exactly 16 feet by 9 feet.
Yeah.
So when an Amway we installed internally, it took us a 10-hour day. And that was with difficulties of realizing, as he said, walls aren't true, wall wasn't truly flush. That was with some difficulties, and it took us about 10 hours for 2 people.
And that's an 8x8? Or what?
About that, yes.
Yeah.
And you guys, sorry, just I've never done it that way. So you did a base first and then one in the middle, and then did everything off of that?
It all depends on the wall as well. So that one we did the base, and then because of how the wall was weirdly curved slightly,
Right.
we did the edges, and then did the middle, and then went in.
Do you have any
That was-
problems with like weight or anything of it? Like, well, not because you're mounting it. So
Yeah, we were mounted, so the weight was fine. It was more of, we gutted the wall and realized there was a slight, just gradual curve in the wall.
So every panel is different.
Exactly. And so to counteract that, we did some interesting things with washers and that kind of stuff. But 2 people, 10 hours, and we're on ladders. It wasn't down on the ground.
Including programming time and everything, or just setup? Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And granted, that's with, my background is LED, and the guy that I was working with has 25 years experience doing LED, but.
So at worst, it would be 2 days.
Yeah, it works 2 days.
Yeah, that's when we go into like using one of our partners' mounts. Chief, they have actual Z adjustment. You can actually have the panels on them, no modules, and you can adjust the Z on every corner. So, it's a lot faster, in my opinion.
Different products already have, they're compensating for those differences already that people are seeing on site.
Premier mount does the same thing.
Yeah, Premier mounts, Peerless, they all have the Z adjustment for the mount. The only thing that Chief has is where you can actually have the frame on there and adjust it after the frame's been put on. That's the only advantage with the Chief. Plus, it's steel made, where Premier is also steel made. Peerless is an extrusion, aluminum, and so on. I mean, there's disadvantages and advantages for each manufacturer. It just depends on the project itself. I know Premier, they custom make curved frames, so you can actually. I did an install for 2 5x5s in Yale University, and they were both concave. And Premier came in with an engineer that already had the frame curved and ready to go. It makes it a lot quicker, because if I had to do, because the mounts, the OE mounts, come in one high, a 2 high, a 3 high, so you can do different variants.
And so what about when you do these wall installations? You're doing all your signal and data behind this wall. If that, you know, if the panel's not going out, but there's something else wrong with my data, how do I get to that now? If this wall's already put up.
So that's the point where when you start catting out where your display is, you want to put your basically your outs, your Ethernet or power in that area where there's on the back, on the edge of each one of the frames, there's actually a hole. It goes all the way to the wall. You can see it. So usually if there's power, you know, you want to put a power plug right there. Same thing for data.
Right, but I'm jumping each one, right?
Yeah, the jumper is actually right behind the module, and there's actually a pathway that you can run through the frame into the next frame. But if you need to take the module out to get to it.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
So these wires are coming up this way. These are my ends going in this way.
Right.
Let's say my second row panel now has an issue, but it's in the center here. How do I get to that panel to change that wire out?
So you want to start from the edge. If it's 2.5, then I would give you a better chance that you can take just that module out itself and then get to it.
My hands can reach and get those cables?
Oh, it's right there. Yeah, it's right there. You can't miss it. Like, it's right there in front of you. Data is on your left-hand side and power is on your right. So, you know, whichever one you need to take out. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Pulling the module out. Yeah, with redundancy, I mean, you can have it where, you know, your starting Ethernet goes and you run your S pattern, and let's say the top one is your end of that first port or that first run. Well, there's an empty port right there. All Absen products has a multi-directional ins and outs. So they might say data in, data out, but they're both ins and both outs. So you can actually run a secondary line, and you have redundancy. So if there is a break data-wise, you wouldn't even see it if you do it right. For 1.5, it's a 1.1 amps per panel. But the weakest link is the IEC cable, the D plug. It's rated at 10 amps. So you can only fit so many on that IEC. Like for 1.5, you can only fit 7. If you want to go all the way max. Obviously 80-20 rule, you know, you would go less. But you could do 2 IEC or 2 plugs per circuit, a 20 amp circuit. For this, yeah, I believe they are running 4 separate. Well, looks like they're running 5 because they're making it easy. They're just doing columns is what they're doing.
You guys do 208 power?
Yeah, the power supply is auto range from 100 volt to 240, and I've ran it a little bit higher, but they're rated at 100 to 240. Auto ranging. Anything? Yeah, absolutely.
So we're gonna raffle that one off.